as I understand it as well, about 99% of Pakistan's LNG, in fact, comes from Qatar and the UAE through the Strait of Hormuz. How many days of supply does Pakistan actually have left, as you understand it right now?
On our FSRU, which is the storage, I think we have about, we are operating at 100 mmCFD instead of the capacity of 600. And operating at 100 will be out of supplies in the next 7 days or so. The second terminal also is operating at a lower capacity, much lower than the committed capacity, and they also will run out of gas in about 7 to 8 days' time.
Okay, so that sounds like a warning. What happens when it runs out?
Spot cargoes are quite expensive, though in fairness, I must point out that from a high of $34 per MMBTU, spot prices have dropped sharply for some reason. They are around $22 today. And if they drop further, Pakistan may have no other option but to try and buy from spot markets, which will affect the entire supply chain. It will affect pricing, cause inflation, but there will be very little choice for Pakistan not to buy from spot, because supplies from Qatar are very unlike. Qatar has served a force majeure to the Pakistani counterpart company, and our counterpart company of the government of Pakistan has served us a force majeure notice also. So the supply chain is completely in a turmoil. Unless we get something from spot market, the operations will cease in 7 to 8 days.
Are you confident that Pakistan will be able to secure LNG from the spot market, though? Because the big question is exactly where that supply is going to come from now.
Pakistan must seek exemption, like US has given exemption to India for buying crude oil from Russia. Pakistan should seek exemption for buying LNG, Russian LNG. It may be much more expensive than Qatari LNG. Russia has been trying to come into the Pakistan market, but it is largely hampered by the issue of sanctions. So if, as a temporary measure, we can get a waiver for sanctions, I think Russians may be interested in the short term to give supplies in order to encourage long-term contracts. That is perhaps the only option that is currently available.
Right. And as I understand it as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, Pakistan was also negotiating to renegotiate these LNG contracts with Qatar last year because of oversupply penalties. Those same contracts now appear to be a lifeline. As you say, there's only about 7 days remaining here. What does that conversation actually look like today?
I think Pakistan should not have entered into those questions. Pakistan got a very good deal from Qatar, and Pakistan should have not opened those negotiations. Last year, Pakistan was expecting 130 cargoes in all in the T26. And now, of course, those 90 cargoes are also debatable whether they will be able to come or not. In fact, Qatar is the only source of supply. They postponed ENI, their long-term contract with ENI, they postponed that. So Pakistan must go for a long-term objective, but we seem to be focused on short-term, month-to-month, day-to-day approach, which does not work in the LNG sector. And we need to think through our strategy of streamlining LNG supplies on a long-term basis.
Can I ask you as well, your company operates across energy and infrastructure and agriculture too. So explain to us, what has this war actually cost Associated Group in the last 2 weeks?
You see, it's very difficult to attribute cost directly. Our LPG production has started, so that's a good sign. The government has realized that local LPG production should be encouraged. That's a good sign. LNG supply chain is completely disrupted. That's a bad sign. Our plans for going into a second terminal in which we want to go in for virtual supply of LNG to consumers which is a big thing in China, a big thing in South Korea. We want to bring it to Pakistan. Pakistan has the need. Natural gas serves only 21% of the homes of the country. It's a large population. All those go on hold because the investors, overseas investors, get a little jittery. But I think the struggle continues. We believe that things will stabilize, and Pakistan is a very good market to invest in on a long-term basis.
What is your message to the government right now as well? You've outlined perfectly the supply crisis that Pakistan is on the verge of suffering right now. What can policymakers do to address this urgently in the short term?
I think two things which have been held up by the government, which they should do. Number one, in the LNG sector, there are two terminals. The capacity will not be utilized because of the Iran issue and non-supply from Qatar. They should allow both companies to import LNG in private sector and sell to private sector without involving government guarantees through spot market. And I think private sector can do a better job in price negotiation rather than the government. The second thing is that in order to counter the price hike, the government can waive certain charges. There are almost a 40% charges added on the import of LNG. About 25 to 30% of those charges can be eliminated, which will bring LNG prices under control. Same goes for LPG. Imports should be encouraged because there's a huge difference between local production and demand. There's also a 40% add-on in local expenses, which can be curtailed and brought down to 10 to 15%. So government has to take decisions, bold decisions to move forward. That seems to be lacking at present. There's no initiative. We have never been called for any meeting by the government to discuss policy. I think we are the only two terminals. We are one and Anglo is the other. We should have been invited. We should have been asked to give proposals, and we should interact with the government. I think we have got suggestions. We have got access to international traders. And if the government allows temporary reduction in duties, etc., you can still import LPG on spot and make it viable for the ordinary consumer.